Becoming the best version of ourselves often requires that we stay. Stay in community, stay in discomfort, stay in the boring, and stay in the challenging. This is such an interesting idea, of recognizing that to have integrity, we need to have alignment between our inner convictions and our outer actions. Inner convictions of worth and dignity, and outer convictions, outer actions that match. Inner convictions of our relationship covenant to show respect, communicate for understanding, participate in community life with trust and commitment, and express encouragement and appreciation. And also the outer actions that align with these ideals. My original preaching of this service was on January 26th, the Sunday before Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the United States. I wanted to connect with MLK Jr. because the quote by Christopher Hertz reminded me of MLK's concept of beloved community. Besides civil rights and African American rights, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was known for making popular the idea of beloved community. The King Center, a resource center, community institution, and memorial center, which was opened in 1968, with the mission to prepare global citizens to create a more just, humane, and peaceful world, using Dr. King's nonviolent philosophy and methodology. They say this about Reverend King's philosophy of beloved community. It is not a lofty goal to be confused with the rapturous images of the peaceable kingdom in which lions and lambs coexist in idyllic harmony. Rather, the beloved community is a realistic, achievable goal that could be attained by a critical mass of people committed to and trained in the philosophy and methods of nonviolence. Beloved community is a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. Poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. International disputes will be resolved by peaceful conflict resolution and reconciliation of adversaries instead of military power. Love and trust will triumph over fear and hatred. Peace with justice will prevail over war and military conflict. Dr. King's beloved community was not devoid of interpersonal group or international conflict. Instead, he recognized that conflict was an inevitable part of human experience, but he believed that conflicts could be resolved peacefully and adversaries could be reconciled through a mutual, determined commitment to nonviolence. No conflict, he believed, needed erupt in violence. And all conflicts in the beloved community should end with reconciliation of adversaries, cooperating together in a spirit of friendship and goodwill. Reverend King's description and discussion of beloved community, to me, speaks of a community living with integrity, a recognition of our inner convictions meeting our outer actions. It speaks to this idea of becoming the best version of ourselves, staying when things get hard, staying when we experience periods of unhappiness, staying when we feel betrayed or when we fail. One thing I recognized as I was reading through the material on the King Center website was that in many places it spoke of the beloved community and how beloved community is a global vision. So often in the past, when I have spoken or thought or preached about beloved community, it has had much more to do with one community becoming beloved. One community, usually a faith community, but it could also be a community of my friends and family, that we're striving to achieve this state of belovedness. But as I read through this material, I recognize that no one community can become beloved, because beloved community is when all of life is living together in right relation. When humans have the capacity to live with integrity and in right relations with each other. When we have the capacity to live into right relations with the natural world. When we have capacity to live into the right relations with the interdependent web. Then we will have beloved community. And as an aside, doesn't that sound like what Lila was talking about when she lit her candle this morning? A beloved community happening down in Penticton. So what does this mean for Kelowna Unitarians? How does Reverend King's description of beloved community and the ability to stay in community when things get challenging or boring, and the concept of integrity have to do with Kelowna Unitarians? Well, to begin with, tomorrow evening, there is a leadership council meeting happening. We are going to be discussing the future of Kelowna Unitarians. What does it mean to be a faith community today in Kelowna? We will be looking at what our vision is and where we are being called to. In the process of getting a firm understanding of what our purpose is, we will also be able to have more depth in conversations around goals for our future. Not just growth goals or healthy congregation goals, but goals that speak to who we are going to be in the city of Kelowna, about how we will help lead our city towards an understanding of Reverend King's beloved community. Previously, I have suggested many different areas in which we could move towards a more beloved community. Perhaps we will continue to build our relationship with the Canadian Mental Health Association. Or perhaps we will recognize that our energy is calling us to recommit to being a welcoming congregation. A certification from the Unitarian Universalist Association that guides congregations through the process of unlearning and undoing prejudices against LGBTQ+ folks within our community. Maybe we want to recertify as a green sanctuary and become more engaged with the other environmental movements within our city. There are so many different ways in which we can focus our energy and commitments, as well as our time. I believe that one of the struggles with finding our sense of integrity is going to be honing our commitments down to what we can fully commit to and not overcommitting and underperforming. One of the processes that I have worked with is called finding the sweet spot, where communities grade themselves on will, competency, mission, capacity, and impact. We will examine our goals and look to find which ones we have the capacity and will to do, which ones we are competent in, and what aligns with our mission, and we will make an impact with. But this will not just be for our goals as a social justice community, but also a community that is seeking financial sustainability, that is looking to grow in numbers and in spirituality. By sticking to our community intentions and making clear our community values, will allow us to ensure that as a community, we have integrity. We will be able to hold discomforts and stay with the situations when things go wrong. We will be able to find integrity in the way we treat one another, but also in our relationships with other organizations, other faith communities in this city. Another aspect that's really important in Reverend Dr. King's work on beloved community is the practice of nonviolence. King believes that this is most important when it comes to social action, but nonviolent communication is also a very key point that needs to be lifted up as well. Recognizing that there is something for which we would normally argue about, disagree, and cause frustration and harm with our words, and allow ourselves to find a compassionate way to communicate them. This is something that I still need to practice regularly. I can neither deny nor confirm the fact that I might have stated during our last board meeting, I want everyone to perceive me as grumpy and frustrated. Beloved community, a community that holds integrity as its highest value, is one in which we have the capacity to meet one another, even when disheartened, even when we feel betrayed or disappointed, and being willing to communicate. Being able to stay, being able to return when things have gone wrong, and allowing ourselves to overcome discomfort and to sit with our discomfort in order to build something that is greater than ourselves can help us to turn the world around. Being able to recognize different aspects of beloved community in our own interactions, and especially in our interactions with each other across these screens, will allow us to work our way towards a community of integrity. I hope that we can make it so. Thank you.